Real stories behind the practical lessons that you can take into your business journey.
So I had this phase of feeling a little bit lost. I didn't really know what came after that chapter. I always wanted to make it in sports, and I wanted that to be my career path. UK and global leading health and wellness brands, Huel, Lululemon, Fabletics.
Every founder starts somewhere. That wasn't with you necessarily. With when you first had the idea about Augmentum, what was the first steps that you had to take? You're proof, I know from chatting to you before this, that you don't need to wait for experience to start to build something.
I'd always been quite driven in that sense. I'd always wanted to have something of my own, to build something of my own. We said we just took the first step, and here we are now, 4 years later.
Before we get into the full story, you're listening to Focus on Founders. I'm Matthew Adams, your host. On this podcast, we go beyond the highlight reel. We dive into real stories behind the practical lessons that you can take into your business journey. And today I'm joined with
Aditya.
And Aditya, you are the founder of
Augmentum Media. So we're an influencer marketing agency. We work with some of the UK and global leading health and wellness brands, Huel, Lululemon, Fabletics, and we help them build and scale their influencer marketing programs.
And you're proof, I know from chatting to you before this, that you don't need to wait for experience to start to build something meaningful. You just need to start and then stay in the game. Before we get into the full story, we're going to kick things off the way we always do with the founder fast fire. So for these questions, it's going to be 9 questions, rapid fire. Don't think about it, just answer it. Okay? When was the last time you thought about calling it quits?
A year ago.
Most random place you've took a business call?
At the airport, as I was boarding my flight, I had to pause the call to give my boarding pass and go through the gate.
Early riser or night owl?
Night, 100%.
And what's one truth business people rarely say out loud?
You fail so much more than you succeed.
And one quote or phrase that you live by?
If you're going through hell, why would you stop?
One app you couldn't run your business without?
Slack.
Weirdest piece of advice you've ever been given?
Drink more coffee.
Who's the first call when everything is going wrong?
My business partner.
And in one sentence, what makes a great founder?
Having the perseverance to keep on going when everything around you is crumbling. And I think that's when you know if you're cut out for it or not. If you can keep calm, keep your head, and still make rational decisions when everything around you is falling apart, that tells you that you should be in the game.
Perfect. That was Fast Fire Founder. Thanks for that. Anyway, let's get into the story. Every founder starts somewhere. That wasn't with you necessarily with Augmentum. You actually started off your journey way before experimenting with entrepreneurship back with your mum back in Tesco.
Yeah, I mean, I started a long time ago. Didn't start as an entrepreneur. My background was in sports. So from when I was young, I always wanted to make it in sports, and I wanted that to be my career path. And it worked out for a while. So I was in the Scotland 15s team, the 17s team, and then I reached a stage where through both injury and just realising that no matter how hard I worked, that wasn't where I'd see success. That's when I pivoted. So I had this phase of feeling a little bit lost. I didn't really know what came after that chapter, and then that coincided with lockdown as well. That's when COVID happened, and I think having just that amount of time to reflect on what I wanted to do, that's when it became quite clear that it was entrepreneurship. And I'd always been quite driven in that sense. I'd always wanted to have something of my own, to build something of my own, and then, as you said, we just took the first step, and here we are now, 4 years later.
And when you first had the idea about Augmentum and health and wellness and, influencer management and working with these sort of brands, what was the first steps that you had to take?
I think the hardest part initially was finding the brands, because we started at such a young age that we didn't have any social proof. Myself and my business partner, it's not as if we had previous agency background. We didn't have a roster of creators. We didn't have a roster of clients. We didn't have a network that we could go and leverage from the get-go. So probably the first 2 years, it was a lot of trial and error in understanding how to actually get brands to take a chance on us. And a lot of our success initially came from going and meeting people face to face, networking, going to events, and convincing these brands that they should take a chance on 2 18-year-olds, which that was tough. It was very demoralizing at times. But we started to build up case studies, working with really small brands, startups, and then taking those case studies and pitching them to bigger clients. We got our first big break, I'd say maybe a year and a half in, when we started working with Hunter and Gather. So we worked with them for just shy of 1 year. That case study then opened doors to bigger brands like Fussy, who we still work with today, 2 years later. And then from there, the last year and a half has been phenomenal traction-wise.
And that first client that you brought on, I understand myself the challenge of being young, starting a business, and you're coming up against people with 30, 40, 50 years of experience in business. How did you manage to combat that? How did you manage to convince people that going with 18-year-olds who have just started this thing is going to be the right decision for their brand?
A lot of it for us was building a personal brand and showing that we actually understood what we were doing. So for the entire journey, 4 years, we've created content religiously on LinkedIn, posted about influencer marketing, our work, our results, the case studies we have, the culture we're building. And as a result of that, when people have conversations with us, they view us as industry experts and subject matter experts. So they're willing to take a chance because they know that we can back it up. We know what we're talking about. Obviously, that was harder at the start, but with Hunter and Gather, I think they just saw two young entrepreneurs that were really hungry for success and who had a passion for their brand. I think that came through. The fact that myself and my co-founder, we met in a sport environment. We have lived and breathed health and wellness and high performance since we were 14. So when brands talk to us, they see that, and they see people that understand their vision. They see people that are their target customer and therefore know how to sell to these customers. And that's been a big part in us working with so many health and wellness brands, is being subject matter experts in that field.
And do you think the doors wouldn't have opened up to you if you didn't have that background in sport and have that kind of, I suppose, face the challenges that you did with your injuries through your cricket?
I think it'd be a lot harder, 100%, because a lot of the founders that we work with, for example, the Turmeric Co., their founder, he is an ex-footballer, right? So a lot of the brands in this space, they're being created by people that have faced real-life problems through sport and are then fixing it for themselves, then wanting to share that fix with other people. So us having that background, us having that relatability of we've also been through the same path, we've gave our all to sport and then kind of came out of it worse for wear, it's a great talking point and it helps us build rapport with them. And then obviously it shows that we know our stuff. It shows that when it comes to recovery, nutrition, fitness, rehab, we know that space inside out. So we understand these brands and we can actually work as an extension of their team because we understand what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And am I right in saying it was at 15 you get the call up to Scotland? Was it something like that?
Yeah. So the under 15s team was when I first played. So I was 14 when I got into that pathway. And then 15s, 17s, and then it all kind of came tumbling down from there.
And you got that injury. What shifted with you in your mind to be like, do you know what? This isn't going to work out with cricket. I need to think of what else I'm going to do, what path I'm going to take.
It was just starting to get left behind a lot for things that weren't in my control. So when you're injured, there's nothing you can do about it. You can do your rehab, you can do your strengthening stuff, but you can't train anywhere near the same intensity. So all of my peers, like everyone that I came through the ranks with as juniors, they were getting opportunities, they were progressing, and I simply couldn't keep up, not through a lack of training or discipline or anything on my part, just because I physically couldn't compete in the same way. And that's when I kind of realized that the best thing for me to do at that point was to just refocus and find what else I'm passionate about outside cricket. But everything that happened to me, everything that I went through in that high performance environment, all of those habits have came directly into business. And I think it's why me and my co-founder, we have such an insane level of trust that I haven't seen in any other founder teams. The amount of faith we have in each other and the relationship we have, I think that comes from the fact that we were in those teams together. When COVID happened, we used to go to a field and just literally do sprints and runs and fitness. And we used to push each other to be the best version of ourselves in sport. And now we do it in entrepreneurship.
And you feel because of that, there's that level of accountability. And, you know, if you're not putting in 100%, he's going to pull you up for it and be like...
It's not even the fact that he'd pull me up for it, but I think we have one of those relationships where I know that he's always working and he knows that I'm always working. So there's that level of trust that I think you don't get in most founder teams, where someone thinks that they're pulling their weight more or someone thinks that they bring more to the table. I know that I bring a certain skill set that he maybe hasn't had to build, and I know that he can do things that I don't even need to be involved with, or I simply can't. I'm not capable of that skill set. So we have that level of trust where we never doubt each other's contribution, and we know that we're always trying to outwork the other person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you see a lot of these co-founders of different businesses, and there's problems that arise with time. For anyone that's got a business partner or is working as part of a team leading a business, what sort of advice would you give them to keep that relationship strong, to help support and grow the business?
It depends. So it depends whether it's a business relationship that's came off the back of being friends. So with me and my co-founder, we were good friends that then became business partners. So that's different, because that's then understanding how to transition from friendship into being business partners, what responsibilities are, what standards you're going to hold each other to. In that case, it's about having clear-cut responsibilities. So we have separated very distinctly which areas of the business I focus on, which areas Sam focuses on, and then we have our own responsibilities within those, and we own those, and we hold ourselves accountable to make sure that those areas are going well. When you go looking for a business partner, I think then it becomes a lot harder, because then you don't have that preset level of trust or friendship, and it's a lot harder to distinguish whether someone is being genuine or whether they want to create a situation that's advantageous to themselves. And in those cases, you need to be a lot more rigid with it. So things like shareholder agreements, contracts, and just having very clear-cut responsibility of what you're going to do, what you're going to bring, and then what your business partner is going to bring to that arrangement.
And how early in Augmentum's journey did you and your business partner sort of sit down and go, this is what I'm great at, this is what I'm great at, let's...
We done that a year ago, and our last year has been our most ridiculous year of growth to date. I think our team's gone from 4 to 19 full-time employees in last year. Our clientele, we've brought on Lululemon, Fabletics, Nestlé, so many of our dream 100 clients have joined us. And that's because we have built a business that can scale faster because we each own separate parts of it.
And growing a team from, 5 to 19?
Yeah.
In the space of a year?
Yeah.
Or it's not an easy thing to do. There must be something right with your business's culture for that to tick forward and to work.
I think our culture starts from the top, which is very important. Our culture begins with myself and my co-founder, but is carried from there by the team, which is very important. So we always try and sit back and let our team now lead on certain elements. So even within our team structure, we now have levels of seniority. We have entry-level roles. We have fairly standard day-to-day roles, and then we now have managerial roles. So it's very important to let those different positions do their job without being constrained by us. We put a lot of faith into our hires. When we bring someone on, they're given a job to do and they're trusted and backed to go and do that job, and we will very much come out of it and not interfere unless needed. And that's what's allowed us to scale so quick, is when someone joins, they're given very clearly, This is your responsibility. This is your expectations. You'll be given every resource to go and fulfill this. We won't get involved. You have us as support, but it's allowing ourselves to actually come out of the day-to-day that's allowed us to scale this quick.
A lot of businesses are actually just now cutting back from the people that they have in their team, picking up more AI, automating more things. How come you're going down the route of employing more people instead of looking at the AI side of things?
We're an influencer marketing business. Our whole model is centered in the fact that people buy from people. People are at the core of everything we do. Our team are at the heart of everything we do. Things like building client relationships, talking to influencers, building out our processes. I think these need a human touch. We are using more and more AI and systems and automations, but only to automate the very manual, laborious processes that people don't really need to do. But everything else, I genuinely believe that you need to have a human element behind it. Clients don't want to talk to AI. Influencers want to talk to a person. You need someone that knows the space, understands the brands. Our team live and breathe health and wellness to the same extent that we do. And that's why our campaigns run that well. It's because when they talk to influencers, they can genuinely embody someone from the brand. AI will never be able to do that.
And health and wellness is a niche. Was that a bit of a no-brainer?
Yeah, we never thought twice about it.
The inspiration behind going down influencer marketing, tell me a wee bit about how that kind of came about.
So we had a few different ideas at the time. The same the same way every entrepreneur looks up kind of how can I build a business. They do research into different spaces. They see what's working. We had 2 or 3 ideas. From high school, I had someone that had built a very successful influencer agency. He's called Amin. So he runs Solace Media. He had been in this space for 3-4 years at that time, and I reached out to him to have a very quick conversation with influencer marketing and basically try and understand if there's still space in this market for people to enter. So he agreed to a 15-minute call. We spoke for about 2 hours in that first chat. And then from there, he basically laid out for us within influencer marketing how people can still build businesses that are scalable. So he told us to niche down on a target market, health and wellness. He told us to become excellent at one small part of influencer marketing. So we'll come into it, but for us, that was things like influencer seeding and gifting. So he laid out the groundwork that we've basically used since then to position ourselves as such.
And do you think without that 15-minute call that turned into 2 hours, you would have been able to do the things that you're doing, or explored it at least as quickly as you did?
No, I don't think we'd have got past the first 6 months without that first call. And then the continued support we've had from Suet, so he's one of the advisors on our board. Without that support, I think we'd have stopped after 2 years.
And in terms of the day-to-day runnings of the business, we spoke about before what's unique about Augmentum, like what makes that truly different than other influencer agencies. Do you want to share what that is?
Sure. So we've centered everything that we do on authenticity. There's so much happening in the space right now. You have AI influencers, you have de-influencing, you have all these kind of inauthentic celebrity partnerships, bigger influencer partnerships where it's very obvious that an influencer has been paid a lot of money to hold up a brand and say that they use it when they clearly don't. We want to change that. We want to be that fresh wave of authentic partnerships where you have genuine brand advocates advocating for brands that they love and use already. So we built our systems off something called influencer seeding, which is where you send products to an influencer, no strings attached, they're not paid, they're not contracted. If they like the brand, they create content. It's as simple as that. But what this does is when you seed, say, 500 influencers a month, it identifies hundreds of people that genuinely love the brand and feel the benefit from it. We then bring these people on board as ambassadors. We give them monthly product. We give them commission codes, discount links for their audience. They get behind the scenes access to what's happening at the brand, early access to new launches. And we turn these people into basically the biggest asset that brand has, which is hundreds of ambassadors continuing to create content on a daily basis that drives really low cost awareness. It generates content that they can use on paid ads, organic social, and then it also drives new customers through people seeing the content, clicking on links, and going through the buyer journey on the website.
Amazing. As you were talking there, I couldn't help but think about you guys starting out in the business and trying to cover and manage all those different things.
Yeah.
Speaking to 500 influencers at one time. How do you go about managing 10 different tasks that have got a variety of different depths and expertise and knowledge?
I mean, I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, but I think the biggest bottleneck we had initially to prevent our scaling was trying to do everything ourselves. So there was a time when myself and Sam, we would do our marketing, do the sales call to get the brand on, do the entire process of it. We'd discover the influencers, outreach them, build relationships, turn them into ambassadors, talk to the ambassadors, report back to the brands, renew those contracts, make it, like, we would do everything. And I think that's what slowed us down. But then having the guts essentially to then go and make our first hire and back ourselves to keep bringing business through, and then slowly outsourcing parts of the process by training our team. So the first thing that went to our team was things like the relationship building, so talking to creators, converting into ambassadors, and then slowly we brought on campaign managers who can do the client-facing side, the relationships with them, managing the execs who do the day-to-day. So that's what allowed us to slowly pull ourselves out of the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and our audience is generally aspiring entrepreneurs and already people that are in business.
Yeah.
But for that creator that might be listening,
Yeah.
what's the sort of things that they can do or have that makes them attractive to an influencer agency such as yourself?
Just be very passionate and careful about the way you approach building your brand. By passionate, I mean become comfortable with creating face-to-camera content, become comfortable with being in your content as much as possible. That's the number one metric that we look for, is creators that are comfortable being in their content. If you're not an influencer that's comfortable talking like this face to camera, do things like voiceovers. They work really nicely. And then when I say be careful, don't work with 50 different brands. Don't work with a turmeric brand and then and then one of their competitors, because brands don't want to see that. It comes across as being inauthentic. So if you take protein powder, then work with one protein powder brand and talk about them for a long time, use them for a long time, try and form a long-term relationship with them. And then just be very careful as well in how you build your audience. So things like buying followers or having really low engagement, all of these things are metrics that we look at immediately and then disqualify creators. So I think being very careful with how your numbers are in that sense as well.
I think the underlying theme there is being authentic,
Exactly.
being true to yourself, and not just diving at everything for that quick buck.
The best creators we see are people that create content around their passion. So if it's biohacking, they'll create content around wellness hacks, ice plunges, red light therapy, but things that are genuinely within their realm. And then that's very clear to brands. And when we look at these influencers, we see that the brand we're working with, their product would be a very organic addition to what their existing routine looks like. And that's the kind of content we want to be promoting, where it's clear that the influencer is using it because it aligns with them and their values.
Yeah, and the creators themselves again, and if they were looking to kind of monetize the platform that they've built up, what would be your kind of step-by-step advice? Say it's someone in the health and wellness space,
Sure.
for example. What would be that advice?
It would be becoming regular with creating content and creating content at scale. So I'm kind of going through this process now, not to become an influencer, but to kind of create a social brand through content on YouTube or TikTok, and really share as much advice as I can on the influencer channel and entrepreneurship. And the biggest lesson that I've had from people I've spoken to is that everything comes down to distribution. It comes down to how quickly you can create valuable, high quality content and then get it out as much as possible and as quickly as possible. So, for example, if you're a creator in the health space, then understand who your audience are, understand why they follow you, and then create more of that content. So if they follow you because they want to understand how to get in shape, as a simple example, then focus and create as much content as possible, catering to that audience. With mumfluencers, we do a lot of work with mumfluencers. They know that their audience are very busy, don't really have time to be doing the biggest wellness hacks there are, but they want easy, short fixes to get the highest leverage out of those changes. So they create content around those simple fixes. But I think understanding your niche and understanding who you want to be targeting to build that audience is the most important part of it all.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you touched on you're building your personal brand. You've been doing that since, before starting a business, and building on that through your expertise and the knowledge that you've gained through time. I suppose off the back of that, seems to be a rise in B2B influencers and thought leaders and stuff. What's your kind of take on what's going on in that space?
Yeah, definitely seeing a lot more of it, especially in platforms like LinkedIn, where seeing a lot more content that has ads written on it. And I think it's good because people post on LinkedIn for a long time. They build a brand on that. And then I think on LinkedIn, the audiences we have are a lot warmer. They're there for business. They're there for, no one really goes on LinkedIn to doom scroll, for example, or at least I try not to.
Guilty.
Well, so I think the audiences there are very warm for those B2B elements of sales. We've not done any work with B2B. We know that our niche is D2C health and wellness brands, but definitely seeing a rise in the amount of work done there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how, I suppose, I listened to you, we're on a podcast a few years back, and you were talking about how you've seen a shift, and it's people have been using predominantly these big influencers with loads of followers, and now there's a shift.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that shift as well, in terms of into the B2B space. But back on that first part, large following to maybe more micro, nano influencers. Tell people that are listening what that means, what the value is in terms of that change.
Sure, yeah. So all of our work is done with nano and micro influencers. Put simply, that means those influencers that have anywhere from, let's say, 3,000 followers to, say, 125, 150. And there's a few reasons. The first one, because these influencers are smaller, they have less brand deals. So any collaboration we do is more authentic because it's not that they've promoted Gymshark and then are now promoting Lululemon and we'll do Fabletics tomorrow. It's a lot more, I use this brand, I've used it for a while, this is why. The other reason is they have much higher engagement rates. The smaller influencers, you tend to get more bang for your buck because of their higher engagement. You're going to actually reach more people compared to a bigger influencer who will have a lower engagement rate. And then the final part of that is the community element. So we're very big on working with influencers who have built communities around them. And these smaller influencers, their communities tend to be more engaged with the creator. So it's something we call audience sentiment. When you look at the comments on a post, if you look at Ronaldo or Kim Kardashian or any big celebrity influencer, how many times you see the comments are just emojis or fire emojis or love hearts and all that kind of thing. Whereas with these smaller creators, you actually see people leaving thoughtful comments or engaging with the content or showing some sort of buying intent. So that's another reason why we like to work with these smaller creators.
And do you find it difficult to find these people? Because there's 3,000 followers. Like, I don't think that nowadays is a massive feat to achieve. So how do you go about getting those people and finding quality ones at that?
Sure. So we use platforms for all this kind of thing. So we use influencer discovery platforms like Modash or Influencer Hero. And these platforms, basically, you input the follower range you want. And then these are all live databases that then go and scrape real world data. So if I put in that I want 3,000 to 100,000, I want people in the UK, I want them to have a certain demographic, i.e., I want to make sure that their audience is at least 70% female, their audience is between the age of 25 and 34. I can put all these data points in that comes obviously from the brand, and then these platforms give me a long list of influencers. Then our team manually go through all these profiles to vet for things like comments and buying sentiment, quality of content, how much content is around competitors, and they'll do that final layer of vetting to make sure the influencer's a good fit for the brand. It does take time, but it's one of the most robust parts of our process. And the reason that brands like Lululemon, where quality is everything, come to us to work with them is because they know that with our discovery process, we ensure that every creator is generally and genuinely on brand for them.
And we spoke about the other day, Augmentum and the roadmap that you have.
Sure.
Tell everyone that's not heard this what that means.
We've got a very simple mission. We want to be the UK's #1 influencer first social agency for health and wellness brands. And for me, that comes down to a few parts. The first one is obviously working with leaders in the space and helping them amplify their mission and vision. The second one, we want to be that agency that brands actually shout about working with. There's a big stigma around agencies because, rightly so, they lock brands into 12-month contracts, they do really poor work, and they leave brands feeling burned at the end of it. We want to be that agency that brands actually shout about working with and feel safe referring. 80% of our leads come from referrals. And while that is slightly worrying from a marketing point of view because you can't predict for that, it is testament to the quality of work that we do and also how much trust and faith that our partners have in us to deliver for them and then anyone that they refer on to us. And then finally, culture-wise, we want to build such a team culture that people love working with us and they really enjoy the day-to-day work that they do.
Yeah, and with, I suppose that in mind, coming back to your, before you started this, what your objective was for life as such, has that shifted since running the business? Like, what you wanted, was it like, were you motivated based on let's go make money, let's go make that happen? Or it sounds like a lot more of a legacy piece now for you.
That's a great point. So initially it was more centered on setting myself up. Like our family, we didn't really have much, we didn't come from much, so I wanted to ensure that they were always looked after, that we were always comfortable financially, and that my parents were looked after, and that my kids had everything, all that kind of thing. But I think now it's grown into more than that. Now we have a team of 19 people. I get to impact the lives of 19 people, and I get to see all of them be the best version of themselves. I get to help them build their dream life and their dream career, and that in itself is so rewarding. So for us, it's now grown into how can we continue doing that? How can we build a good culture? How can we build a bigger team? And then also, how can we work with brands that are genuinely mission driven and have really good products and help them just amplify the effect of that? Because health and wellness changed our life. It made us the best version of ourselves, and we want to basically encourage as many people as possible to go through that same transformation journey.
And for you, when was the moment that it clicked, that it wasn't just about supporting your family and it was more about the impact that you can bring to other people?
Probably 6 months ago for the first time, when we started to grow the team and our team expressed to us how much they love working here and how great they find the culture is. And for me, it was amplified around maybe 2-3 weeks ago when a girl in our team, Isabella, she created a TikTok video and posted it, basically saying that, you know, she had worked at companies before and she hated the culture and she was feeling burnt out, and then she joined us and she now loves her 9 to 5. She loves working with the team. She loves what she does, and she's feeling mentally so much better. And it made me realize that we can impact the mental health of so many people by, obviously, directly our team. We can create an environment where they love what they do and they feel safe and comfortable and they feel at their best when working with us. And then also every person that we can put onto a health journey, they're also going to feel better as a result of it. The brands we work with are amazing brands. I use them myself. They're great brands, right? So the more people we can get onto these brands through our marketing, the more lives we can impact in that sense as well.
It's quite deep. It's
Sunday morning for you.
Yeah. I think like you make a great point. I think that the industry and your personal mission go quite hand in hand together in terms of your positive mental health, being the best version of yourself, staying fit and healthy, being happy, ties in very well with the sort of brands that you're working with.
Yeah, they all go hand in hand. Like mental health, physical health, emotional health, they're all pillars. They're all very important parts. And I've fell down that trap. I think everyone has fell down that trap of maybe not prioritizing each element of it. For example, there have been lots of times where I've prioritized my physical health and I've looked great and I thought that's it. But then actually mentally you're burnt out, you're drained, you're not in the right headspace. Emotionally, you're distancing yourself from family, you're not spending time with loved ones, you're being distant and avoidant. So I think it's important to kind of bring it all together. And a lot of the work we do, we don't just work with athleisure wear companies or kombucha companies or gut health companies. We also work with brands that advocate for mental health. We also work with brands that aim to help people across all these different pillars.
It's amazing. And I think off the back of that, like, what's one of the moments where it's really hit home and you've went, I'm proud of myself for achieving that?
There's a few. We don't really stop and look back too much, but signing Lululemon around a year ago, I think it was a year ago actually, yeah. So that was a big moment. That was our first, I was 19 at the time and I signed a Fortune 500 company as a client. That was a proud moment. Moments with our team where they feel comfortable in sharing and expressing that they love the environment. We done our first QBR at the end of Q3, so we got our team down to Edinburgh for our first ever kind of in-person get-together. So seeing them all together in person, seeing them working together and brainstorming ideas and just getting on as people, it showed us the impact of what we've built. And then I guess alongside that, just for me as well, seeing my parents finally feel comfortable and safe. Like my mum said to me that she was like, oh, I don't need to worry about you anymore. You just do your thing. And I can, like, she started spending on herself a lot more because she knows that I'm now fully independent. Things like these are kind of proud moments that remind you of how far you've came.
Yeah, and I can see in your face, your eyes when you said that, just like that's a moment that really hit home as the person that drove you to all your cricket games, made sure there was dinners on your table after that. You were working away, going to school and building Augmentum, and she was always there, but now it's your chance
it's my turn to give back, 100%,
to give her
100%.
I love that, honestly. I think you touched on one of your proudest moments there being getting in with Lululemon. Sure. And they're a client of yours now. You've been working with them for around a year. And it sounds like that relationship's really growing based on the work you're doing as well with them. What opened those doors? How did you go about getting them?
It's all networking. It's all building relationships with people and not expecting anything in return. So with Lululemon, there was a company we worked with, and then our main person of contact moved from there to Lululemon. Now, obviously, you're never going to know where people go, but we done an amazing job for that client. The person I became really good friends with, and then naturally when he left, we still stayed in touch. It was never a case of, oh, he might go here, so let me keep in touch. It was just keeping good client relationships and just making sure that, you're still in touch with people in the space and you're building personal connections with them, and then doing such a good job that when he moved there, his first thought was, right, how can I get you guys in to do this, because I know that you guys are good at what you do.
Yeah, and I think that's testament to the work that you guys have obviously done previously with him for one of his first thoughts when he's moved into a new company, where usually you're like, let me get my feet in the door, yeah, how can I get you involved? Which is great. You often talk about Augmentum being a 7-figure business now, and from your perspective, what does that actually mean in terms of your scale, your operations, and even the weight of the stuff that you're building?
It means breaking down every process a lot earlier and in more detail to identify what breaks and when it breaks. So I spent most of this summer breaking down our entire operation cycle to understand from the moment that we onboard a new client to the moment that they leave, what is every step that happens, how can it be optimized, where does time go, what are the blockers, where do things break, which parts rely on me, which parts can be automated, and then basically streamlining those processes as much as possible. That's one part. The second part is a team. The big shift when you grow to 7 figures and beyond is actually you need to hire the right people and then also prioritize their development, because we are now at that level where every person we hire with a 2, 3, 4 year plan in mind for how are they going to be with our company as we scale a lot further. And when you're hiring this caliber of talent, you need to be very clear in how you're going to retain them, because people want to see a vision, but they also want to see a map for their growth and their development. So one of the first things that we do with any new hire is we will sit down and we will plan their career progression. When should they be promoted? What is that promotion? What needs to happen in between? So we map out their entire job architecture, we call it. And then every month we have a check-in to make sure that that person's on track. And we've retained every single member of staff that we've hired. And I think the biggest part of that is always giving them a very clear vision of where their future with us lies and how we're helping them get there.
And is that as clear as here's the next 4 years, at the end of year one, if you've hit these objectives, KPIs, you're going to get a pay increase? Or like, what does that look like? How clearly defined is that?
So it's charting out what the roles are. So for example, if someone joins us as an influencer executive, then it's showing them how do they go from there to being a senior exec, to being a campaign manager, to a senior manager, to a campaign lead. It's showing them what every stage of progression is, what salary bands all these progressions come at, the responsibilities for each role, and then it's showing them what they need to do in the next 6 months to progress to that role. And then every monthly meeting is just making sure that they're on track. We want our team to be progressing, taking on more responsibility, being paid more. So we work very closely with them to understand and identify if that's not happening so we can fix it. And then if it is happening, then we try and speed up as much as possible.
I think that's so important for you to have, and I suppose your business partner and the rest of the team to have that sort of clarity of how important training actually is to the business, not just necessarily that person, but the business's growth, and having that sort of mindset with things. One of the last things we're going to jump onto is I've been about the streets of Scotland, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and I've been asking passers-by in the street if you could ask one question to a business owner, what would you ask them? So I'm going to go through some of them here and get your take, and be answering the questions that they often wonder. What was the moment you realised that this could be a real company?
The moment we realised that this could be something we scale to a significant extent was probably January 2024 2025, this 2025, yeah. So earlier this year in January, when we made our first proper full-time hire, we advertised for it, brought someone on, trained them, and then 3 months later we brought on 4 more people. So I think that's when we realized that the rate we were growing at, we had the potential to build something serious. It's also when brands started to take chances on us, brands like Lululemon and Fussy and Hunter and Gather, when they showed faith in our ability and they showed faith in our testimonials and case studies. That's when we realized that we started to back ourselves a lot more. We started to understand that we actually do really, really good work. And then we started to basically push ourselves out there a lot more to talk about it. So things like jumping in podcasts and doing speaking appearances and doing talks at conferences and talking about what we do, that's when we started to back ourselves to actually make something of this.
The next question would be, what is one mistake that you made early that you'd never repeat?
I think maybe our first few part-time hires, so not the one I mentioned there in January, but even when we were a year and a half in, we kind of hired for the sake of it. So we brought someone on part-time at 20 hours a week, and a lot of it was just kind of looking for work for them. So I think that first hire is so important because it really sets the tone for the quality of work that you guys do and the rate at which you can scale. So not making that until you need to, but then also making sure that they really resemble the quality and values that you want your company to show.
And we'll go one more. Why did you get into business? And if it's just purely for money, why is that?
So initially I got into it because I wanted financial freedom. I wanted to not have to worry about paychecks and affording things. I wanted to be able to provide for myself, my parents, and my family and not have to think twice about it. I think that's changed now. So now, as you mentioned, we are building legacy. We're building something that people will remember, and we're building something that our clients want to work with, our team want to work at, and something that truly changes the way that our industry is seen and viewed. And I think at this point, it's a bit bigger than myself, my co-founder. What we're building is bigger than us, and that's exciting.
Hopefully the people of Scotland like those answers. The last thing, just before we wrap everything up, I'm asked one founder this question, the same question to every founder. And it kind of relates to a lot we were talking about legacy. When people talk about the work that you've done 10 years from now, what do you hope that they say?
I hope they remember the relationship that we built with them. I hope they remember us as being genuine people that had their best interest at heart, which we do. I hope that they'll remember feeling a level of trust in us to deliver for them. And I hope that they will feel comfortable, if we're still kicking about in 10 years, to vouch for us and recommend us to other people as well.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today. First guest. So it means a lot to me personally. For anyone listening to the podcast, if you can give it a wee share, a follow, subscribe, whatever it is, support the podcast and reach out to Aditya, Augmentum, follow their journey because they're doing some really, really exciting things. Yeah, here's to the next episode.